Your cat walks past 3 people sitting on the couch. 2 of them fed her this morning. 1 of them installed her favorite climbing tree. She ignores all 3 and jumps directly onto the lap of your friend who's visiting for the first time, allergic to cats and visibly uncomfortable. You've probably assumed this is random, or that cats prefer people who ignore them, or that they're drawn to the warmth of a nervous person. All of these explanations show up in casual conversations about cat behavior. None of them is what the research actually demonstrates. What's happening in that moment involves a selection system so specific that scientists can now predict with measurable accuracy which human a cat will bond with. And the factors have nothing to do with who buys the food. Number 1. Vocal pattern recognition precedes all other factors. In 2019, researchers at the University of Tokyo conducted a study with 78 domestic cats, playing recordings of their owners calling their names, mixed with recordings of strangers using identical words. The cats showed measurable ear and head orientation responses to their owners' voices 75% of the time. But here's what matters. The response wasn't to the name itself. It was to 3 specific vocal characteristics. Pitch variation within a narrow frequency range between 200 to 400 Hz, speech tempo that averaged 3.2 syllables per second, and something the researchers called prosodic contour, the musical quality of how someone's voice rises and falls. When strangers were coached to mimic these exact patterns, cat response rates jumped to 68%. Nearly matching the owner recognition rate. A follow-up study in 2021 by Dr. Atsuko Saito measured 96 cats over 6 months and found that cats formed preference bonds with household members whose natural speaking voices, not their cat-directed voices, fell into this range. The person who baby talked the cat had no advantage. The person whose regular conversation happened to hit these acoustic targets became the preferred human 83% of the time. From the cat's perspective, you're not choosing to talk to them in an appealing way. You either emit the frequency pattern that activates their social approach neurology, or you don't. And this operates completely outside your conscious control. Number 2. Proximity timing operates on a compression window. Researchers at Oregon State University in 2017 tested how cats form attachment using a protocol adapted from child development research. They evaluated 79 cats and their owners, but the interesting finding emerged from the time-tracking data. Cats didn't bond with the person who spent the most total hours near them. They bonded with the person whose presence compressed into specific windows. The first 20 minutes after the cat woke from sleep, and a 15-minute window in the early evening, typically between 5 and 8 p.m., when the cat's cortisol levels naturally dipped based on circadian rhythm. The person who happened to be physically close during these windows, even if they weren't interacting with the cat, became the attachment figure in 71% of cases. Total daily contact hours showed almost no correlation. A person who was home all day but busy during these windows lost out to a person who came home from work and sat down to read during the cat's evening cortisol trough. The mechanism appears to be neurochemical. During these low cortisol windows, cats have elevated oxytocin receptor availability in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. Proximity to a specific human during this state creates what the researchers called passive imprinting, a bond formed not through interaction, but through reliable spatial co-occurrence during a neurologically receptive period. You're not being chosen for what you do with your cat. You're being chosen for when you happen to exist in the same room. Number 3. Interaction restraint predicts bond strength. This is the part that contradicts most advice about building relationships with cats. In 2020, a team at the University of Sussex filmed 100 cats interacting with household members over 2 weeks. They measured who initiated contact, how long interactions lasted, and crucially, who ended them. The cats formed strongest attachments defined by approach behavior and physical contact seeking with the person who touched them least. Specifically, the preferred human averaged 3.2 minutes of daily physical contact compared to 11.4 minutes for non-preferred humans in the same household. But there's a second factor beneath this. The preferred person also showed the highest rate of interaction termination respect, a measurement of how quickly someone stopped touching the cat after the cat signaled withdrawal by ear rotation, tail movement, or body shift. Preferred humans stopped within 1.8 seconds on average. Non-preferred humans continued for an additional 7.3 seconds after the signal. The research suggests cats aren't choosing people who leave them alone. They're choosing people who demonstrate predictive reliability. You will touch me briefly, and you will stop when I indicate, which means I can control the interaction cost. When humans override those signals, even by a few seconds, cats recategorize that person as having unreliable boundaries. The person your cat loves most is likely the person who has internalized, without being taught, that every interaction with a cat is a negotiation that the cat can end. Your conscious intention to bond through extended petting sessions works against you. Unconscious respect for their exit signals selects you as safe. Number 4. Environmental modification creates negative association. Researchers at the University of Lincoln in 2018 tracked 52 cats in multi-person households and measured which humans the cats approached for social contact versus resource access. They found something unexpected about environmental changes. When a person rearranged furniture, changed the location of food bowls, or introduced new objects to the cat's territory, the cat showed decreased social approach toward that person for an average of 11.6 days afterward, even when the changes were objectively improvements, like better climbing structures or more comfortable beds. The measurement used was proximity seeking. How often the cat chose to be within 1 meter of each person during rest periods. The person who made changes dropped by 43% in proximity-seeking behavior. The mechanism appears to involve territorial security processing. Cats maintain mental maps of their environment updated through the hippocampus, and unexpected changes trigger a mild stress response involving cortisol elevation. The person associated with that elevation gets temporarily tagged as a source of unpredictability. Meanwhile, the person who left everything exactly where it was got proximity increases of 31% during the same period. The cat chose stability over improvement. If you've installed elaborate cat furniture and wonder why your cat seems closer to your partner who did nothing, this is the neurological explanation. Cats are selecting for the human who represents environmental constancy, which their nervous system interprets as safety. The person who makes their world better from a human perspective makes their world less predictable from a neurological mapping perspective. Number 5. Scent baseline matching determines comfort hierarchy. A 2021 study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science examined how cats respond to human scent profiles. Researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine Vienna tested 67 cats, collecting worn clothing from household members and measuring how long cats spent near each item when placed in neutral territory. The results separated into 2 categories: time spent investigating the scent, which was roughly equal across all household members at 8 to 12 seconds, and time spent resting near the scent, which varied dramatically. Cats spent an average of 14.7 minutes resting near clothing from their preferred person, compared to 3.1 minutes for others. The researchers then analyzed the chemical composition of the clothing and found that preferred humans had lower concentrations of volatile organic compounds associated with synthetic fragrances, specifically limonene, benzyl alcohol, and synthetic musks found in detergents, perfumes, and personal care products. But there's a second layer to this. Cats also showed preference for humans whose cortisol byproducts, measurable in skin oils and sweat, fell into a moderate range. Too low suggested unfamiliarity or absence. Too high suggested stress state. The preferred person emitted scent markers that indicated present but not distressed. You become the favorite not through scent you add, but through scent you don't add, and through the chemical signature of your baseline stress state. If your cat chooses someone who seems to do nothing special, the answer might be that their unmodified scent profile and moderate cortisol output create the olfactory environment the cat's neurology recognizes as safe baseline. While your attempts to smell pleasant through products code as environmental threat. The research points to a single unifying pattern. Cats aren't choosing based on who loves them most, who feeds them, or who plays with them. They're choosing based on who creates the lowest cognitive load. Every factor identified – vocal frequency, proximity timing, interaction restraint, environmental stability, scent baseline – measures the same thing. How much mental processing does this human require? The person whose voice naturally falls into the recognition frequency doesn't make the cat work to identify them. The person who's present during low cortisol windows doesn't require vigilance maintenance. The person who respects exit signals doesn't force recalculation of safety. The person who doesn't rearrange furniture doesn't demand map updates. The person who doesn't wear fragrance doesn't require scent threat assessment. You're being selected for how little neurological work you create, which explains why the family member who seems to ignore the cat often becomes the favorite. They're not ignoring the cat, they're simply generating less data that requires processing. The next time your cat chooses someone who appears to put in zero effort, understand what's actually being measured. That person's existence requires the least cognitive taxation, which, to a cat's nervous system, built for energy conservation and threat scanning, is the definition of a safe relationship. If you want to become the chosen person, the science suggests a counterintuitive path. Do less, change nothing, stop when they signal, and let your unmodified presence become part of their environmental baseline. Subscribe for more research on how cats actually process their world, and comment below. Has your cat chosen the person in your household who seems to try the least? The data says that's not coincidence. That's selection.